of live a life that full I travel it in every byway and more, much more than this. I did it my way.
Good afternoon. By introduction, my name is Eleni Quinana. I am an entrepreneur, businesswoman by trade, psychologist by training, but today I come to you as not only your program director, but as the chairperson of the Brics WBA South Africa. At the end of the day, on the 29th of March 2025, when we then exit this conference center, we would have done it our way, would have done it successfully, and we would have achieved what brought us here today. Let me observe protocol as I mentioned. In absentia, I'd like to thank support to our Minister of Women, Youth, and People Living with Disabilities, who has apologized and had to leave the venue. However, in her absence, thank you so much, Honorable Minister Sindisiwe Chikunga. I'd like to also recognize our Minister and Deputy Ministers that will be sharing some insights with us this afternoon from our wonderful country in Ghana. Thank you so much for traveling through. And not go without recognizing our Brics WBA Chairperson South Africa, our Chairperson Lebogang Zulu. Thank you very much, ma'am. You don't have a thick skin, you've got a skin of steel, but you will share more soon. Please rise. And that warm welcome for that powerhouse, that unshakable leader. Please, may we put our hands together and welcome her.
Oh my word, okay, this was totally unexpected. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, colleagues. We may all be seated. I'm sure many of our dignitaries have left. I want to start off officially by apologizing for a late start. They always say revolutions do not necessarily come at an easy price. And this may very well be the price that we have to pay as women to lead the economic growth of not our country, but our continent. My name is Lebogang Zulu. I am the chairperson of Brics Women Business Alliance. Firstly, I'd like to welcome our dear sisters from India, our investors who will be on the call tomorrow, our leaders, Deputy Minister, I recognize you and thank you for your patience. The leadership of Brics Women Business Alliance, and most importantly, the people that brings us in this room, the entrepreneurs themselves. So for the longest time, I have to go back to a moment when I felt, as a person, the real effects of the shift in the global power architecture. I landed in Moscow with all sorts of bank cards in my purse, but I could not even swipe to buy myself a can of Coca-Cola. It became real that all these cards that I have right now mean absolutely nothing. And I was speaking at a platform in St. Petersburg, and the title of that particular platform or session was Brics on the Verge of Change. We all sit in this room wanting to see change happen. We all sit in this room with the hope that many of us that are operating in economic corridors as micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises especially ourselves as women, with the hope that somebody's going to do something for us at some given point. But let me give you the true picture. The true picture is, if you just look at South Africa, we'll come to all the other BRIC countries. First of all, we are a country that's sitting with a debt to GDP ratio above 75%. What that simply means is that our output is not enough to sustain our needs. We therefore need to either A, rely on borrowed money, which of course does come with terms and conditions, and or B, we've got to rely on the famous aid, I just have to call it that, to sustain ourselves. That's what it means, number one. Number two, we sit in this room with our colleagues from various BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and even the new ones. But we sit as a country with negative trade balances with each one of them, meaning our colleagues are selling more to us than we are selling to them. And of course, at no given point can we blame India, Russia, China, and Brazil for selling more to us. It is a true reflection of their aggressive economic policy that they are pushing forward while we sit as women and wait for somebody to do something at some given point. So the whole point of us coming together in this room, and not only as South Africa, but as Africa, is two things. That number one, when we have our foreign minister sitting on the table negotiating the terms of a bilateral agreement between South Africa and Russia, here is your reality. The reality is corporate South Africa is at least 20% government, 75% multinationals, and 5% native business community. Corporate Russia, on the other hand, is 50 to 60% government, 30% native, and 10% native. And they're sitting with a debt to GDP ratio just above 22%. What that means is when our foreign minister is sitting on the same table with the foreign minister of Russia within the BRICS framework of cooperation, the Russian ministry is sitting there wearing two hats, one policy and the other business, because corporate Russia is 50 to 60% government, while ours is sitting in that room wearing a 20% participatory stake in business and more of policy. Now, at the end of the day, we can't sit back and wonder, why are we sitting with negative trade balances? That's number one. Number two, even if you were to turn the whole of South Africa into an agriculture site, we cannot produce enough to sell to just one of those BRICS markets. We cannot sell to a China that's above, population of about 1.5 billion people. We cannot. And this is why it is for that reason that back in 2023, when we presented our annual report to the heads of states, we placed, outside the annual report, we placed two specific initiatives. Number one, addressing the issue of access to finance. So we placed our heads of states to say, back in 2016, under India's presidency, an MSME cooperation framework was signed, which basically said all the heads of states agree that the engine of growth for BRICS economies is sitting in the hands of the micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. To that end, you guys would agree with me that 80% of that particular business segment is actually women. That's number one. So they signed that framework to say, we agree, we will put the resources, we'll put technologies, we'll do whatever is necessary to help grow that particular business segment. So to that end, we then requested their endorsement to say, while policy framework was approved in 2016, operationalization thereof has not seen the light of the day. To that end, we requested their endorsement in allowing us to work with the new development bank as the BRICS women across all member states in establishing what tomorrow we will call the BRICS Women Advancement Fund. It is work in progress. Last year, under Russia's presidency, we did agree on a framework of the fund itself to say we would like for it to be partly developmental, understanding, of course, that NDB is very commercial and the other portion be commercial, because you're bringing it back to that MSME cooperation framework. That's number one. But number two, the second initiative that speaks to us in Africa was to say to the heads of states, for the longest time, South Africa has been saying we are speaking as a voice representing Africa. So the S in BRICS is representing the African continent. To that end, we requested their endorsement in allowing us to open regional offices in non-BRIC member states. To that end, of course, we did get the endorsement, and South Africa has gone ahead and opened a regional office in Lesotho, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Mozambique. We just operationalized and appointed the chairperson for Eswatini. We are talking to Ghana. When we did that, Russia got the point, and Russia went ahead. And I'm glad our colleagues from Belarus are here. Russia went ahead and also opened regional offices in Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and Belarus. What does that mean when we say regional offices? Understanding, of course, that the BRICS Women Business Alliance is not the political and or security pillar of BRICS that is way above our pay grade, that is heads of states and ministers. The other end of the cooperation framework speaks to cultural and people-to-people cooperation. We, as the BRICS women, sit right in the middle as a financial and economic cooperation structure. So when we are establishing regional offices, this is us saying, while we cannot convert a South Africa into an agriculture site that can supply a China and India or a Russia because they're bigger markets, we would like to operationalize our economic cooperation with African states so we can begin to practicalize trading as a bloc, not as individual countries. And Russia has exactly done exactly the same thing from there. Of course, it's a process. It's a journey we've walked for the past 4.5 years, a journey that has landed us to be sitting in this room. I can't see Ruby and I can't see Ankita. I'm sure they are. Oh, there they are the queens. It is for that reason that in the 4.5 years journey, we have signed a 5-year cooperation with a brilliant institution called the Brics Chamber of Commerce. While it's a very special chamber, you don't apply to be a member of that chamber, you are invited, because they choose who needs to be in that. And the choices are informed by various things. Impact investment is one. Two, they only speak trade, they only speak investment. They speak, very importantly, especially the women empowerment vertical, speaks capacity building amongst women. Because if you imagine the BRICS market as a sea, in a sea when you throw little fishes like ourselves that are micro businesses, small businesses, and medium-sized businesses, in that sea, there are bigger fishes. There are sharks, there are small fishes, much bigger than ourselves, so we'll easily get swallowed. So the whole point of capacity building is precisely to walk us towards a journey that we don't find ourselves in a sea and either A, be swallowed, and or B, drown. That is not where we want to land. So the whole point, and again, I have to express our deepest gratitude to the Chamber, led by the Joint Director, Ankita Sachdev, and of course, the President of the Women Empowerment Vertical, Merubi Sina, that we are landing in this particular summit. While we had a late start, I totally do apologize for that. However, today was not what the summit is about. Tomorrow is what the summit is about. There are 4 key components of what brought us together in conceptualizing what we want to do here. That number one, we've come up with what we call the BRICS Power Pitch. Simply put, entrepreneurs that are sitting in this room will be pitching to a panel of investors, pitching their businesses, pitching their projects. And this panel will not only be physical, but some of the investors will be connecting virtually. These are not your commercial, investors that you would think, don't stand a chance. No. These are startup funders. These are your seed funders. These are your venture capitalists that are not only looking at agriculture, they're looking much broadly than agriculture, but we said, let us start this journey somewhere, because Rome was never built in one day. So our starting point was precisely, let's start with agriculture, because when you imagine agriculture, it's a unifier. It's a unifier of many other economic sectors. A farmer needs water, water is infrastructure. A producer needs electricity, that's energy. Yeah? Technologies are so critical, especially today we're talking in a climate, in a global warming and climate change scenarios where rain patterns are totally different today. We need more technologies. So when we looked at the BRICS Power Pitch, we said we will look at agriculture and related ecosystems. Somebody that takes waste and turns it into something that value adds. So there are brilliant entrepreneurs that have brought forward compelling investment memos that we do believe will walk away tomorrow with deals and at least an intent to say, I think I can work with you. That's number one. Number two, critical to tomorrow, is what we call the B2B cross-border mentorship. For a Lebogang that has traveled, that understands international markets, her thinking is different. It's not the same as a Lebogang that has never traveled, that only sees the market as a domestic shelf and nothing else. Right? So the whole point of a B2B cross-border mentorship, again led by Smart Exchange, I don't know if Jonathan is here, Jonathan and his institution, they've done absolutely amazing. Nobody would imagine an incubation house that will take somebody from the grassroots of the dusty streets of KwaZulu-Natal and turn that company into a listed company, just from incubation. And that is what capacity building is all about. Practicalizing things. And again, the Chamber says we are working on a program that will be funded by our own government to bring some of these entrepreneurs to India. Exposure is everything. That Lebogang that only understands domestic markets is not the same as a Lebogang that starts dealing at international level. So traveling is part of what we're looking at when we talk about the B2B cross-border mentorship. But it's beyond that. You're looking at the big players, taking the hand of a small player and saying, I'm going to teach you how to get to my level. Of course, we don't see that as the big player creating competition for themselves. No, we see that as a collaborative approach where we're not the big player who's already commercial, already has markets internationally. You're creating your own capacity elsewhere. So when you've got a bigger market to supply, instead of increasing your own output, you can reach out to your mentee and say, look, I've got this order, it's quite big. For my capacity, you are at this level, I'm going to buy from you. That's the whole point. So these are the two critical legs of what this summit is all about, because we want to walk away with tangible results. We do not want rhetorics, we do not want policy. Our governments have spoken already at policy level. We are part of a Brics framework of cooperation. Our ministers have spoken, bilateral agreements between each of the Brics countries have been signed. So ours as the business community, both micro, small, medium-sized, and even corporate, ours is to hold hands together and say, okay, how do we practicalize these policies? How do we leverage the Brics framework as a corridor that enables us to be empowered as women? Colleagues, I must just tell you, between Brazil, Russia, and between Brazil, South Africa, and India, there's a lot of empowerment needed. But Russia is a different ballgame altogether. Their women are very empowered. And the whole point of bringing the two together is to say, okay, what do we learn from you, and how do you support this side? And this side, what do you need from corporates? We are proud to be sitting in this room, being supported by executives from Old Mutual, various business units, I must just say. So we look forward to a tomorrow that says, as big as you are, you've got visions, and yes, you are a business, and how do we collaborate that you still get your ROI, but we also then get value by seeing our women move forward in international corridors. We also have in the midst the Gracia Machel Trust, our dear partners, who again have said, look, we've been incubating, we've been supporting, but we certainly want to see our women grow to a point of that is in South Africa can at least list. It's 31 years into democracy, colleagues. We have not had one woman-owned company listed in the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Not one. 31 years later. So surely, they say if it ain't broken, why fix it? But it is broken because we are 51% of this country is ourselves, 50% of the global population is women. But then again, when you look at all other stock exchanges, how many are actually women-owned? So ours is to send a message to yourselves, and that's why the two panels that we have, the expanding global trade and talking investment strategies in agribusiness. Those two panels are bringing both private and public sector together and big organizations and says, to say, how do we work together to empower and move? Because as we empower and move our women, we're actually pushing the economy forward from each of our countries. So it's not done in isolation. The private sector alone can't do it. Public sector alone can't do it. It has to be a collaborative approach. And that is why we have those two very important panels. And we do have great speakers that will be channeling our thinking, that will channel our action towards shaping even our own thinking as women entrepreneurs, insofar as the journey we are embarking on. It is only about the beginning, it certainly is not the end. So colleagues, on that note, I wish to say thank you so much. My role was to really outline what the summit is all about, what do we look forward to. So we are looking forward to 28 March especially. We're looking forward to watching those pitches. We're looking forward to supporting those women that will find expression with the investors and those women that will find expression with the mentors to say the next step forward, how do we move forward together. Thank you so much.